The ultimate challenge of strength, where you could steal, destroy, and of course kill. And for the next 3 days, I'll be trying to survive alongside hundreds of other Minecraft players, because this is Minecraft Purge. Starting off on day 1, I got on and found chaos everywhere. But before going out and raiding bases and finding OP loot, I had to save some loot I already had. But then it was time to go. I started off at spawn, which was completely destroyed. There was players spawn camping, killing anyone who teleported. I was smart enough though and stayed away from that the whole purge, because it would have been immediate death. But then I started to explore out into the world. I had a few homes that I wanted to check first, like this grinder system, which I thought might have a few things lying around. And I was right, they had a double chest full of gas tiers that I could turn into end crystals, and another chest that had a bunch of bottles of enchanting to repair my armor, as well as a couple helpful tools that I could use to destroy my enemies. I also went to this giant base that was full of chests, but sadly I found it already raided and there was items all over the ground, and it was honestly such a waste. But I thought it was now time to break my first Minecraft rule, killing all of these animals. I also thought it would be fun to add another challenge to this already dangerous situation, where I would try to collect as many spawners as possible over the next 3 days. I continued exploring the world, gathering a bunch of resources and loot from different players' bases. And throughout Purge, I found so many amazing bases that it's hard to believe people are this talented. Eventually, I stumbled across a small cottage by the ocean, not expecting there to be anything special. But in one chest, I managed to find some really good items with custom looks. The original owner had also had this really cool summoning room where they worshipped their frog lord? I don't know, they had some really strange stuff going on here. But this gave me the perfect idea. I wanted to make people fear me, so I started placing my head at every base that I went to, hoping that this would stop them from attempting to follow me. And I think it worked, since I was always the hunter and not the hunted. As I searched for people to kill, I continued raiding bases, stealing spawners, and a bunch of other loot. And this lasted for about 30 minutes. Every time I would find a bunch of chests in a base, I would expect there to be crazy loot, but every time I was wrong, and then left disappointed by the cobblestone and dirt the owner left behind. But occasionally, I got some really OP loot. I got so much extra loot that I had to start teleporting some players in and give it out to them for free. And some of the better items I even sold so that I could get some money to buy a purge mask. I continued gathering every spawner I saw, every chicken, cow, pig, and even the occasional magma. Throughout my journey, I really found some strange things, like this book telling someone that they would never escape a trap. I never ended up finding that trap, so I hope that person's okay. Halfway through day 1, I decided it was time to meet up with some other players to make it easier to find bases. My first teammate teleported me to a mall filled with shops, but sadly they had all been raided. And then there was this giant pink base where I found a few okay drops, but a lot of it was already taken. I decided to end off day 1 by listening to some pig step to psych myself up for tomorrow. And it worked. I got on day 2 of Purge and decided I was going to stream it to the world. This would add so much more risk to me because they could now see where I was, but I welcomed the challenge. And of course, with the items I had, they'd have to try really hard if they had any wish of defeating me. This also gave me a chance to chat with other players that are trying to survive Purge on their own. They had some pretty interesting stories.
I was raiding a base and I successfully got a love me bow.
Amazing hat. Oh, the Medusa stone. Nice.
And there you go. I just found this base with loads of chests, but it's all empty. I feel like it's just a waste of time.
Turn particles off? Yeah, good suggestion. But to start off this day, it was back to checking spawn, and I found it fully reset, which turned out to be a miscalculation by the devs. But it did mean that it was now safe whenever I went to visit. And after checking how much spawn had changed, I thought it was finally time to explore for bases. And the first actual good item I found was a set of liquor armor, which I held onto just as a backup for the set I already had. I also managed to find a couple chests that had some helpful purge items like cobwebs, arrows, ender pearls, and even more bottles of enchanting. I was finding loot upon loot at every base I went to, so I was now starting to think that it was time to teleport viewers in to take some of the extras. So every base I went to where I found a cool item, I would teleport in a random person to collect their prize. But there was always one type of player I had to be careful of. If I ever saw a liquor rank, I wouldn't take my eyes off them. They were the most dangerous player on the server with their ability to fly, and one wrong move on my part could lead to my death by their hands. I finally decided it was time to check back at my home base to see how much damage had been done. I found part of my island destroyed and players swarming everywhere, but I stood strong and defended my island for as long as I could. This was also my first actual fight of Purge, and even if neither of us won in the end, it was still super fun to PvP. After the fight, I thought it was time to get my first kill, so I started exploring, trying to find a weak player that I could easily kill. I started searching through underground tunnels at spawn and high above the skies, but all I could find was lickers, so it was back to exploring through bases, and I was suggested to use player warps to discover some unrated bases, but I still had to be careful since they could be spawn trapped. At one point, a viewer told me to go check out the VIP area, because supposedly there was some really strange bugs happening there. When I teleported, I immediately saw death, but this wasn't a normal death because they were dropping their items, which shouldn't have happened till tomorrow. So I decided to wait and see what happened. I ended up seeing one lucky noob run and grab a bunch of items, so I decided I wasn't going to pass up on a chance to get some free stuff for myself. I flew in and grabbed some of the fallen items, then teleported away before anything got worse. There was no way I was dying with all of this. But that wasn't going to be the only strange thing that happened today. Another time, I was checking to see who was the richest player on the server and found that a server admin had given themselves $9,999,503,990,840. Like, just what the heck? Here's me grinding for my money and they use a /give command. But I ended off day 2 by teleporting everyone to me and seeing how much chaos would unfold. I wanted to make sure everyone was prepared for the horrors that would come with day 3, where it would become hardcore, and if a player died, they would get banned from the server forever. When I joined on day 3, I almost forgot that if I died, I would get banned from the server. So from here on out, I had to be constantly alert of my surroundings. Before I started hunting players, I wanted to check out spawn one last time just to see what players ended up doing to it. And I found it completely destroyed. But there was also a lot of amazing secrets that were uncovered by all the TNT explosions. After I got my fill of destruction, it was time to hunt. But today was different because I now had access to a player tracker, which would show me how many blocks away the closest player was to me at all times. This could be used to escape players, but also track them down. So I started to go after Georgia Burns. I teleported in someone to help me hunt, but completely forgot that this would affect the tracker. So instead of hunting, we explored a nearby base where I found a ton of decorative furniture, and after exploring more into the basement, I found a chest full of the most powerful items on the server that would give me eternal life temporarily. So I collected a few for myself and sold the rest so I could have a bit more money just in case I needed to buy more items in the future. But while I was finishing up, I heard a glass block break above me. My teammate was by my side, so it only meant one thing: another player was here. And just seconds later, they found us and started placing end crystals everywhere to try and kill me. I was fast enough to get out of there, but I couldn't leave my teammate behind. So I waited with my bow ready to shoot until they finally made it out and we escaped. After regrouping in the desert, we were attacked again by a player with an elytra. They were flying around trying to land a good hit, but I was way better with my bow. After fighting, I realized it had been a couple minutes since I last saw my teammate, so I quickly looked around and found a pile of their items on the ground. He had died and been removed from the server. I was ready to avenge him until out of nowhere there was a licker who flew in. I could only guess that it was the elytra player's teammate, so I quickly flew away with my own elytra so that I wouldn't get double teamed. While exploring, I found another player and ended up having a sky battle with each of us landing blows while gliding with our elytras. But once again, a licker came in and interrupted our battle, so we both flew in opposite directions to escape the third party. I eventually stumbled across a noob and decided this would be my one nice act of purge. So instead of killing them, I gave them an elytra so they could explore more of the world and find some good loot of their own. After that, it was back to tracking, and eventually I found a player trying to hide underground. Then a friend of mine came and stole the kill. So I did the only logical thing to do and shot them with my bow. But what they didn't know is there was a bug that could launch them into the sky and instantly kill them. And after it happened, the items would rain down from the sky for me to collect. And then it happened, which means Jay the Pro became my first elimination of Purge. I gathered all of his items and went back to exploring, and that's why you never steal anyone else's kill. I was tracking Infinite 99, and we ended up coming to an agreement to meet up and have a fair fight. And if it got third partied, we would both run away in opposite directions and that would be it. So meeting in the desert, I counted down and the fight started. We were both evenly matched, and while he chose to go for sword fighting, I went more for bow damage, hoping to end this fight with one good hit. But as time passed, neither of us actually got low, so when a couple players showed up to watch, we decided to end the fight there and go our separate ways. I wanted to end off Purge with something special, so I checked back in my Purge base, and while I was there, someone saw me from above and mined down, but I managed to one-shot them, so there was no worries. Then I was asked to help blow up my base by a few other players, so after placing all the TNT, I lit it and watched the world explode, before flying off into the sunset, realizing I had just survived this year's Purge.